we get to see Odysseus go for the knees in this one.
Oh yeah. He wasn't. He stood away from Nausicaa in the last book, but now he's touching knees.
He's going for the knees. It's such a specific thing. I can't remember the last time my knees were touched by anyone in any context. Oh no.
Hello, and welcome to Winnow, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married, and we love to talk about books together.
In this podcast, we are working our way book by book through the entirety of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. This particular episode will cover Book 7 of the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. A short one. Short one. But we're making progress.
Yeah.
Almost a third through, kind of.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah. I am ready to do my summary.
Yes. Bella's going to do a speed summary, 60 seconds on the clock, and then I will ask the opening question.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? Begin.
So Odysseus makes his way up to the castle, the palace on the hill, and he goes separately from Nausicaa. He bumps into Athena in the form of a little small child, or a young woman, I guess. And Athena, in this disguise, leads him up to the palace. We get these beautiful descriptions of how wonderful the palace is and how they have crops year round. It's a very bountiful place. And then Odysseus gets instructions also from Athena on how to enter. And he goes for the knees of the queen of the palace. And then he's treated like a guest. He's welcomed into the house. And they do ask a little bit about who are you? He doesn't really say who he is, but he tells them kind of his story, which we will get into. And yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Okay. Well,
sometimes when I put under pressure, time pressure, I can kind of freak out.
Yeah.
I forget, specifically, I forget proper nouns. Every proper noun I've ever known goes out of my head.
Well, and apparently the difference between a castle and a palace would be called a passel, I think. That was fun.
I didn't realize it said passel until later. I was like, oh, that's a good word.
Yeah. So my opening question, I think we'll fill in a little bit more of the detail towards the end, and then we'll work our way backwards. So, right, you mentioned that Odysseus sort of gives his story about how he got there, what happened in the last book. And right after he finishes that, King Alcinous is like, wait, you met my daughter out there? Why did you come in alone? She should have brought you to me because you were the first person to whom you supplicated yourself. Mm-hmm. And he kind of criticizes his daughter for a lack of piety in terms of abandoning a suppliant. And then Odysseus in turn basically says, oh, no, that was my idea. And we all know from Book 6 that it was not his idea. This was Nausicaa's idea for Odysseus to lag behind. And so we get Odysseus's, I think, first really just straight up lie. Mm. And I'm curious, what are we meant to make of that?
Mm. My translation calls it careful tact. With careful tact, Odysseus replied, your daughter is quite wonderful, great king. Please do not blame her. She told me to come here with her slaves, but I was too embarrassed and nervous. I thought you might get annoyed at seeing me. We humans on this earth are apt to be suspicious. And the king really likes his reply. Mm-hmm. He says, Athena, Zeus, Apollo, what a congenial man you are. I wish you would stay here and marry my own daughter and be my son. But he's like, but you seem really hell-bent on getting home, so that's okay too.
Yeah, it gets him exactly what he wants. It is the right thing to say in the sort of political context, but it is just straight up false.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe, am I being too harsh? It is false in terms of whose idea it was, but the reasoning that he articulates is true. It was this sense of we don't want to be seen together for fear of impropriety. The rationale that he gives is accurate to what actually was the rationale, but he attributes the idea to being his own rather than to Nausicaa's with which he agreed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always tricky because basically what King Alcinous is saying is, no, like if you had done it the other way, if you had just come together, like that would have been fine, and everything would have been fine in that situation. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those weird cases of after the fact. Mm-hmm. Like after the fact, he says this.
Right.
But we don't really know that he would have actually reacted that way if it had actually happened that way. Mm-hmm.
And again, he might have been fine with it, but there might have been rumors swirling about the town that like, did you see Nausicaa with that like really attractive guy? Like, what was she doing with him? Like, even if he himself would have been okay with that, the sort of rumor mill out in town, like, right. I think Nausicaa's reasoning she wasn't worried about her dad thinking something would be improper. I think she was worried about
the whole
like
community
just walking through town.
Yeah, which is interesting because when Odysseus walks through the town alone, he is almost the whole time until he is right at the knees. He is surrounded by a mist Athena puts around him so that people can't really perceive him.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was strange.
Right. Yeah, they went through all of this effort to separate them so that he could be seen on his own and it wouldn't be a weird question. And then Athena still, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just points out how these people are really unused to having visitors. Mm-hmm. Like it is really a weird thing for there to be a guy around that no one recognizes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to like ingratiate yourself to a group of people in a society that are, I mean, small town mentality. Like, you really don't want people around that you don't recognize. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a common thing.
So do you think that Athena was right to disguise him in that way? Because I read it as a little bit over controlling from Athena's perspective.
It's definitely a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because as a part of Nausicaa's plan, she was just pretty honest that like, if you come into town from the orchard, you can find any kid and they'll point the palace out to you. Like they can help you. Everybody knows where it is.
Yeah.
And then she gives the same instructions that Athena gives in terms of like, go to my mom first and then she'll help you, then talk to the king. Yeah. And so nothing that Athena does actually seems to be practically that important. It seems like Odysseus would have been fine just following Nausicaa's instructions and going up to a random little kid and saying, hey, where's the palace? And the kid would be like, there it is.
It's funny because from his perspective, he has gone up to a random child and asked how to get to the palace. That random child just happens to be Athena in disguise.
Right. I guess you're right. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, like, but that feels a little skeezy, right? Like Athena disguises herself. Like I thought she was on Odysseus's side. Like, why does she need to hide from Odysseus in this moment? Yeah, it seems very strange from Athena's perspective to be this involved in what is a fairly simple and straightforward plan that like doesn't feel like it has that much room to go wrong.
Yeah, it's also from Odysseus's perspective. I think that he thinks he's doing this all on his own, like a little bit. Like he thinks he's doing it fine, left to his own devices.
Yeah.
But little do we know, or little does he know, that he is being aided every step upon the way. There's an interesting line that King Alcinous has. He's talking about the whole thing, how strangers can appear on your doorstep, but they're actually gods. He says, he's talking about Odysseus, but if he is immortal, come from heaven, the gods have changed their ways, since in the past they used to show themselves to us directly. Whenever we would give them hecatombs, they sit and eat among us, even if just one of us meets them out walking.
Among us.
But that little chunk of lines stood out to me. Alcinous is talking about a time of the past, or he's talking about what it's like amongst their culture on their island. Mm-hmm. But he has this picture in his mind that there's no reason for the gods to obscure themselves or be in disguise. Mm-hmm. This is a place, or maybe he's talking about, in the good old days, gods used to just show their faces to us. Mm-hmm. you know?
Yeah, I read it as a little bit braggadocious, where he's like, our place is so perfect, like the gods just walk among us. Because I think it echoes, right? Like in your summary, you talked about the really beautiful descriptions of the town as he's walking through. Like the language is very paradisiacal.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of described in the most positive terms imaginable as like the kind of perfect place to live. And so it would make sense that the king would be like, yeah, like this is the best place ever. Of course the gods want to hang out here with us because we're great and they're great and we just get along. What do you mean something weird might be happening?
That line, in contrast to Athena being extremely like behind the mist, right, is just a really interesting contradiction.
Right. Because the Phaeacians want openness, but Odysseus has been sort of conditioned towards, I guess, like secrecy or at least caution. Yeah.
Odysseus is being nice. He's giving no one any reason to think he's trying to do something malevolent or anything. But I wonder if there's a part of Odysseus as he's walking around looking at all the beautiful things, this paradise. He's thinking to himself, man, I could really steal a lot of stuff, you know? Like part of the big descriptions is to set the scene. Part of it is to make us feel the contrast of Odysseus, who's tired and been traveling a lot and just wants that feeling of welcomeness and home, right? That the island kind of has a feel of. But then the other side of it is like, what if he is walking into, outside the front doors, there's two statues of dogs, one of silver and one of gold. And, you know, Odysseus is seeing all this literal silver and gold around him. And
he's lost everything multiple times.
Yeah. And he is, as we remember from the Iliad, like he is Odysseus, the plunderer of things.
Yeah.
Right? Like he is a pirate.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if his goal isn't to like literally just steal it, like he might be thinking like, oh, if I play my cards right, like they could lavish me with gifts and like just like I could get a lot out of this interaction if they agreed to like send me home and obey sort of all the guest friendship laws. He might be thinking like this is the best place to wash up as a stranger because they're going to treat me real nice.
Yeah. And they don't know about my past dealings.
Yeah.
And at least until they know his name,
right?
Which he is very careful to not say.
Yeah, that is very important. That in this book, we do not see Odysseus reveal.
He does not yet tell anybody what his name is. He just gives the story of him washing up on Calypso's island and then going from Calypso's island, staying at Calypso's island for 7 years.
Yeah, I was wrong about the number. I thought it was closer to 4, but
7 years, and then after that, washing up on their shore.
Yeah, so I think let's dive into that. Like he gives his story, and everything that he says in that story before the part that I opened with about Nausicaa's idea to come separately is true. Like he doesn't sort of lie directly by saying something false. But he obviously also leaves a lot out, like why he crashed in the first place, who he is, what he was doing 7 years ago.
Yeah. He doesn't say, well, I was in Troy.
Yeah.
You know the war that happened? Yeah. I ended that war.
Right.
With my keen intellect. And then we took all of our gold and he doesn't start there.
Right.
Right. He starts, it's the queen, Arete, who she is the one who recognizes Odysseus's clothes. The weave that he's wearing is a weave that she recognizes that one of the slave girls in her castle would have done.
It's like their style. Yeah, their local style of clothing.
Yeah, so she's like, She says, stranger, let me be first to speak to you. Where are you from? And who gave you those clothes? I thought you said you drifted here by sea. Planning his words with careful skill, he answered, it would be difficult, your majesty, to tell it all. This is an excuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's also not an excuse. It is true.
It would take a while. Yeah, but he's like, it would be too much. The gods have given me so many troubles. I will tell you this. There is an island far out in the sea, and then he goes on. So he starts with Calypso, basically, in in his story.
Yeah. And so then it's interesting, right? At the end of this sort of story that is, accurate, but not the whole picture, he then says to them, now I have told you the truth.
Yeah. At the end of his big speech.
Yes.
I have told you the truth, no matter what.
So this brings us into our Greek time segment.
Yes, it's Greek time.
The word truth, there's nothing like controversial about the translation. It is the word that kind of throughout all of Greek history, ancient Greek history, has been translated as truth. Hasn't really even changed from Homeric to Attic to Koine Greek or anything like that. It is aletheia. The specific form as it appears in the grammar is alethein, but the root is, aletheia. Why did we bring this up? Because again, it's not a controversial translation or anything that interesting about the way it's translated.
I had thought sometimes before or after Odysseus speaks, the word that's used to describe what he's doing is sometimes muthos. Sometimes he's spinning
a story,
a myth. And so that's why I had been interested in okay, is it the truth or is it the muthos truth? But yeah, so this is the classic word for truth.
He is claiming that he has told them the truth. And the reason we wanted to talk about this term is because even if it is universally translated as truth, it is etymologically interesting because it's one of those compound words that became just so unified that people don't even think about it as a compound anymore. Because there's the which is an alpha privative, a negation, and then leith, which, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, should remind you of the river Lethe. And what does the river Lethe make you do when you drink from it?
It makes you forget.
Right. So aletheia, the truth, is not forgetting. And I think that's an interesting concept because there's a sort of eternalness to it, that the truth is that which is not forgotten or cannot be forgotten.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love that little etymological gold nugget. I think that's great.
Yeah.
That which cannot be forgotten almost brings me chills.
Yeah.
In the context of the Odyssey here, I think it is he's just using the word that means truth in the same way I think that we would use truth. But it could have a little bit of this undertone of these are these are things that I have not forgotten, at least. The stuff that happened before his time with Calypso was 7 years ago, a long time ago. And there is a part of him, I wonder, that's kind of forgotten or either on purpose tried to forget or
again, maybe has intentionally left out.
Yeah.
I want to, that's what I want to sort of get at with the opening question that then is relevant here too, is how much of Odysseus's sort of storytelling is intentionally crafted in the way it is versus just this kind of genuine sort of outpouring. This is the way I remember it. Because I do think there is enough evidence here to think that there's something intentional. He is leaving things out on purpose, even if he's not in this moment directly lying. He doesn't want to reveal at this point that he's Odysseus, that he came from the Trojan War. He easily could have. And so the fact that he doesn't, I don't think it's just I just decided to start there because that's what I remember most recently.
Yeah. It's a lot to drop all of that information if he was to give the whole story now.
Right.
It's a lot of information to drop at one time. It can be overwhelming for the person who hears it. And also, this isn't maybe the time for him to tell a long story.
Right. Because in many ways also we have to go back to the question, right? The question that came from Queen Arete that this is answering is kind of a more practical, how did you get those clothes? You're wearing clothes from our town.
Yeah, it's a
and
specific
yet
question.
You said you drifted in on the sea. And so the immediate question that he is trying to answer is how he got those clothes. And this story, for the most part, does a pretty good job of just kind of getting to that point of mainly just summarizing what happened in book 5 and 6 that we've kind of already just seen and talked about.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit reminds me of a leprechaun or a riddle situation where you ask a question and they give you an answer, but it's a tricky answer. It's it answers the question technically, but it might not be the full thing.
Right, because she didn't ask,
Yeah.
Who are you? Tell me your whole story. What is your name?
Where are you from? And in his mind, he's from Calypso's island.
Right. Yeah. Most recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to also think back. We have seen these sort of like guest friendship introductions happen already with Telemachus. And the sort of traditional thing that's been done when Telemachus shows up with Nestor and with Menelaus is like, we welcome this person, we give him food, we feed him. And even actually, I'm forgetting, with Telemachus welcoming Mentes, who was Athena in disguise. So we've already had kind of 3 of these. Stranger supplicates himself to a host. And often, yeah, the pattern is feed this person, make sure their sort of immediate needs are taken care of. And then you eventually do kind of just start with like, who are you? Like that is a pretty common first question. And the fact that they don't ask that here.
Yeah, let me just double check that though. Yeah, it seems like the question of who are you is never put towards him. It's so interesting when Odysseus enters, goes for the needs, begs for help me please get back home and quickly. I miss my family. I have been gone so long it hurts. He lay down by the hearth among the ashes of the fire. I think that that's just really good Phoenix rebirth imagery where he's like, I have nothing left.
Yeah.
And then when another guest speaks up, it's like, Alcinous, you should go treat this stranger like a guest. And Alcinous reached for Odysseus' hand and raised the many-minded hero from the ashes. I really like that line.
Yeah, especially given that at the end of book 5, there was a very clear Homeric simile of Odysseus like burying himself in leaves like somebody buries an ember to awake the next morning and light the fire again.
And so I like this image of Alcinous thinking, or Odysseus sets up the situation so that Alcinous gets the public perception of helping this poor guest. And Alcinous gets to feel good about what he's doing here.
Yeah.
In front of everybody else and just for his own sake. He gets to feel good about taking pity on this random dude in the ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's also talk, because we haven't mentioned yet, it is also interesting that Nausicaa tells him to go to the queen first. Athena tells him to go to the queen first. And he does indeed go to the queen first.
Yes.
Before, even though the king is kind of right there. And so the queen's role here is also important because it's in the narration of like how paradisical this whole place is. It also talks about Arete and how wonderful she is and how well loved she is in the town and how generous she is. And it's like very, very clear that the king and the queen almost rule as equals. It is not like the king and then his wife on the side.
Yeah. She's extremely beloved by the town. And Arete means virtue.
Or excellence, yeah.
But there's also, when you get the backstory of who they are, it is revealed that so Arete is the niece of Alcinous.
Yes.
Alcinous is her uncle.
Uncle husband.
Classic uncle husband. So we just want to drop the incest in there. I think it was pretty normal at the time. And when you're in a small community and small town, Sultan mentality, marry your niece.
It is like marry your niece because your brother died. And
yeah, it's to keep, so Alcinous' brother was slain by Apollo or something like that. So very much is about like keeping the family unit together or something. Keeping the family together or something, but you don't have to marry your niece to do that. Anyways, from this detail, we can infer that Arete is much younger than Alcinous. So they are like different generations. They're probably they've got to be more than 10 years, 15 years apart in age. So, and that's why it's interesting when Nausicaa gives Odysseus the instructions upon entering the palace of what to do. She describes the scene. She says that her mom leans against a pillar, slaves behind her. My father has a throne right next to hers. He sits and sips his wine just like a god. Pass by him and embrace my mother's knees to supplicate. So this image that she paints of them, at least, is one of Queen Arete being like, symbolically, I think, she's standing and she is leaning against a pillar. So she's like the pillar, the thing that holds an entire house up, the roof up. So that's what Arete is, versus King Alcinous is, I think, older, more tired, and he is sitting in the throne. So it's one of those situations where you have the man doing the classic king thing, and on the surface maybe looking like he has more power. But when you look at the situation closer, you would see that it is in fact the queen who is kind of literally holding things together.
Yeah. What's the line from My Big Fat Greek Wedding where she's like, yes, the husband is the head of the house, but the wife is the neck, and the neck turns the head
anywhere she wants. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, classic.
I guess, yeah, and like on a practical level, this makes sense because it is Arete's sort of direct knowledge of the household goings on that like she is familiar with the exact type of clothes that, you know, their palace weaves and creates, and she's able to recognize in Odysseus that like, wait, you're wearing our clothes. Clearly something is off. You didn't just like wash up here an hour ago.
A detail that a man would never recognize. Yeah, I guess I would also say, so kind of returning back to like your specific opening question about why would Odysseus lie about whose idea it was for him to wait behind and come later. I do think that he knows that he has sort of ingratiated himself to Nausicaa. Like he hasn't, until now, he doesn't really have a working relationship with these other adults, but he does seem to have some sort of working relationship with Nausicaa. And Nausicaa and her mom seem to be similar women, I think. And so if Queen Arete has a lot of, if she's so well liked by the people and respected, she even like she'll even like resolve disputes among men in the town, which is like a really, I feel like back in the day that was like she's like a lawyer kind of. That's crazy. And so I think he recognizes that being in good with Nausicaa gets him in good with everyone. And so I can see him not wanting Nausicaa to like take any blame for anything.
Right.
And so by ensuring that he takes any perceived blame that might be being thrown around onto him, that ensures that it maintains a sort of relationship with Nausicaa. It also kind of makes it feel like they have a secret together. Yeah,
because I think it's actually important that it's not the way Odysseus frames it. He frames it so skillfully that he's not even taking blame for it. He's actually able to position it as a good thing that like, no, like Nausicaa didn't abandon me. I didn't run away from Nausicaa. I made a conscious decision to protect Nausicaa from the sort of rumor mill in that way. And so he's able to not only defend Nausicaa, but to also like bolster his own sense of propriety and these kinds of things to Alcinous. And again, that's exactly why it works. Alcinous is like, wow, like you're the most consummate gentleman imaginable. I wish you would stay and marry my daughter because you seem really great. And so
or incredibly thoughtful. About things I think maybe I was also just harping on this because we recently watched Wuthering Heights and talked about that, and it feels like it falls into the trope of like the male character like wanting to take the fall for something that the female does wrong, like young Heathcliff does when defending Kathy for why they're late and all of that. And it's obviously not the same, but it sort of has that same feeling of that trope of like, no, I'll take the blame even though I didn't do anything wrong. It plays as chivalrous. And I think it is more like neither of them did anything wrong. And it is actually kind of Alcinous being the one who jumps to conclusions by like perhaps being too critical of his daughter, where his like immediate conclusion from that is like, how dare Nausicaa not have brought you here directly? Like she is the impious one for not treating you properly as the suppliant. So Alcinous kind of like introduces the negativity, and Odysseus is able to very skillfully navigate it so that not only is Nausicaa free from blame, but he also is free from blame and actually is, worthy of praise. It's almost like Alcinous chastising her for acting like a child, kind of, for like not knowing the proper ways of addressing people and the proper customs or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of has this like kids these days don't know how to,
Yeah. But Odysseus has a line somewhere where he says, "One would not think a girl as young as her would have so much good sense. Young people are not usually so thoughtful. She was so kind to me. She gave me food and wine, this is actually before, though. This is when he tells his whole story. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But before Alcinous chastises, kind of, he makes a point of saying that she acted as like a grown-up, an adult would have in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think it is worth noting as well, Nausicaa is not here for this conversation.
Yes.
There are other people here. It's not just the king and the queen. They're like in the middle of a feast, and so there's other kind of like town elders around watching this, but Nausicaa is not one of them. And so both the accusation from Alcinous and Odysseus' defense of her and taking the blame, she's not directly involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does bring me to kind of like one final point, I guess, that I would make about this whole scene is that the hall that they're in becomes very empty. It is kind of just the king and queen who are conversing with Odysseus as he tells them this little abbreviated version of his story right now.
Everybody else is kind of like left and
it's like bed. It's late. I don't know. They've already been eating, I guess. Yeah. So there is this sense of, I think, Odysseus waiting. I think he's waiting for the proper moment to tell his story. He's waiting also to have a real audience to tell it to.
Yeah.
This is not the size of audience that he demands if he's going to go through the whole story, tell the whole thing.
Yeah.
He wants to make it an event.
Right. And I think, from a narrative perspective, again, thinking about how Homer crafted the story this way, again, it does build that tension of like, we know Odysseus will ultimately reveal himself, but he's sort of being cagey about it so that when he does, it feels even more kind of big and grand and like, the mask is coming off. And
yeah. And also when he reveals who he is, he doesn't want it to be braggadocious.
Except will be.
He does want to brag about himself.
Yeah.
But he needs it to be wrenched out of him so that he appears to be humble.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we will get to see that in Book 8. I think the circumstances by which he does reveal himself are wonderful and kind of like perfectly fitting.
Yeah.
It sort of plays perfectly into his hand. And so we will get to that.
Yes.
I will have an audiobook of Book 8, Samuel Butler's translation, if you would like to listen along either on YouTube or in the podcast feed. Mm-hmm. And you're welcome to read along if you would like, or in whatever other translation you might have.
Yep. And there's a new episode of our Patreon-only podcast, Chonkers, a mini podcast about thick books out now. It might end up being longer than this regular episode
We have lots of other books we're reading and end up talking about them quite a lot.
Indeed. But next week we will read Book 8 and talk about it.
Yes.
And until then,
happy reading.